and together we are interested in improving your productivity, again, to improve our department. So I actually developed this training as something that if there's interest, I could give at my job. Get a number of my employees as part of their personal development plans that are going through a book called Getting Things Done by David Allen, and it's a productivity personal management system type book. And so I've built this training largely on that book, although there's been some other resources and stuff I've used as well. So we completed an introductory module that detailed the importance of personal management systems, and you're all convinced that they are critical for peak performance. So the second module will focus on Getting Things Done, which is a New York Times bestseller by David Allen, and it is largely considered the productivity guide for modern professionals. The book's been expanded, or the contents of the book have been expanded into multiple platforms and systems like Microsoft Office, so highly regarded and widely used. And so this module will focus on the key concepts of getting things done and how they can be applied to a personal management system to improve productivity. The module will be abbreviated. It's a 90-minute module that will be condensed into 25 to 30 minutes. We'll get through an abridged exercise and lecturette, and depending on how much interaction we have and how back and forth we get, we may have time to review a secondary exercise that would go on the end of the module for my full presentation and my full production. So the first module first exercise I call open loops, and hand these out, and it's to help the participants internalize the problems of trying to keep open loops in your head. So I'm going to hand out, here you go, tasks, assignments, and one by one, just don't look at them until we're all said and done here. And you guys are going to get up and move about and exchange tasks. And I think there was 11, so now 12 of us, until you've seen all 12 tasks. So you can use a pen and paper to write down the task number you have and just keep track of the tasks you've seen. But no note taking. This is not. Don't be writing down the tasks, the due dates, or anything like that. That's kind of the focus of the exercise. It's not a competition, so Lori, don't try to come up with any creative ways to game this one. And as you exchange the task, I'll give you 5 minutes to do so. It might not take the full time, and if it doesn't. But as you exchange a task, share one interesting thing about yourself with the person you're exchanging with. So, with that said, go ahead and exchange tasks. The goal is to obviously memorize the task and have all 12 in your head by the time you're done. So.
Do we share something?
You can physically just memorize yours and hand it off to someone else. Sorry. Yeah, write down the numbers so you know which ones you had, because you want to see all 12. So, and then physically exchange tasks.
I already forgot the first one.
I know. Then try and remember it.
Oh, okay, yeah, try and memorize it.
Okay, so then.
You're welcome. I already thank you. Oh, wait.
Oh,
wait, so I got it right in there.
My horizon's here.
Here, take this one.
Spin around. Just make sure you zero change.
Oh, we're not.
Wait, hold on, I gotta see it first.
We're not? No, did we just write down the
We're
numbers?
supposed to try
Just
and
the first
remember.
one. Trying to remember.
No, write down all the numbers so you
Oh yeah, no,
just
not
make sure
yours.
you got
She was
it.
trying to give me hers. I was like, we just have to remember our first test.
Oh, are we supposed to get remember all of them?
I saw J script was an info, so I was on it too, right? Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I get it.
Sure, I read it carefully. Lord.
Oh, I've never seen this one. Have you seen that one?
I'm not gonna remember these dates.
Yes, I remember the dates.
We did.
I heard that, yeah.
You guys have probably seen this one. I need some of yours.
There was one.
Somebody over there.
Sir.
What was that one? Paint over and by. Is it tomorrow? 8:15. Okay. So I know.
Does anyone need a two?
Yes. I need a 5 and a 7. 1, 2, 3. I don't have a 4. Do you have a 4? No, I just get 4 years. I need a 7. I already have this one.
I know.
Get this one. Can I just write down the number? I need 3, 7, or 8. I need 4.
I just wrote
5.
There are 12 tasks.
Got that one.
We don't have 11 and 12.
Does anybody have 12? What do you have?
I'm gonna remember this one because I know how to micro.
And we've got 1 more minute, and then if you don't get all 12, we'll just stop where we're at.
Do you ready to meet
I
5?
have a 2. I need an
Need a
8.
10?
Let's see if you need a two.
Yeah, 7.
Does anyone have 11 or 12?
Does anyone have a 4?
Does anyone have 11 or 12? 8?
Anybody need 5?
6? 11 or 12? I need 8.
Oh.
I need 8. I don't think it has been 11 or 12.
I need 8.
Does anybody have 8?
I'll just end up with all of them.
You have it. No, I have 10 4s.
I know like 3.
Yeah, but that's okay. No.
What do you have?
I know I have 3. I think I'm gonna get
So let's start wrapping up, and as you get done, bring the papers up here and drop them off with me. With your tags.
Oh, there's 10. 7 on that.
Oh, do you write them down now?
No, don't write the tasks down. Just after you see the numbers, so. And if we're at, again, if you only got the 10, you only got the 10, that's fine.
So sorry.
I got 10.
Yeah, I think they're all.
So there was this-
You're gone.
10.
There's 12 of us, right?
Yeah, but Olivia's gone. But Olivia's out there, so it'll take 10 of us.
Okay, yep, there's only 10. Thanks.
Okay, good.
That makes it tough for you. So there's only 10. So this kind of is obviously a condensed version of a day. As you interact with people, you have demands on your times, inputs come in, things you have to do, and so go ahead, take a minute here, and write down as many of the tasks that you can, as you can remember, with the due date if you can remember them. All right, so as you finish up, how many were able to remember more than 3 tasks and due dates? Rachel?
No, not the due days.
Okay, you're ish. Anyone over 5? So Jordan, how come you couldn't remember the tasks and due dates? There were only 10.
Well, mainly because I looked at it for about half a second.
Yeah.
I can the ones that I actually held on to for a minute, I don't remember the due dates for them, but I remember kind of what they were about.
Okay.
But,
Okay, so again, in comparing this to kind of real life, the everyday world, it's a condensed version of the interactions you have. You try to gather in the task, and if you try to keep them all up in your mind, you're going to fail. So some of the points that this exercise hopefully emphasize is that we have a lot of demands on our times, a lot. Every day, numerous inputs coming in, and numerous things to process and take care of. So the demands and inputs that we receive can equate to tasks, assignments, projects, anything that I would call an open loop that requires action before you can close it. And people simply cannot keep open loops in their head effectively. They'll fall through the cracks. You won't be able to remember them when they're due, that sort of thing. You got to get them down the system. And further, if you try to keep open loops in your head, it really prevents you from doing what I'll call focused deep work. how many times have you tried to sit down and get going on a project and do some real detailed, deep work, but then in the back of your mind you remember that I need to call my wife later tonight to schedule our band appointment, or I need to talk to my boss about this issue I'm having with this employee's behavior. And so with those going on in your head, it's impossible to focus and conduct deep work. So you need a means of collecting inputs or open loops and putting them into a structured system for processing, something that you can trust that will be there, so you're not trying to carry them around in your head. Once you get them down into your system and in place that they're going to be processed in the future, you can effectively let those go and focus on what you're trying to focus on. So we'll move into abbreviated lecturette from there to actually learn the concepts of getting things done and how they can be used to increase personal productivity. And so, if I can. The 4 generations of time management is a concept provided in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And essentially it's saying that, again, from very basic to very advanced, there are 4 generations of time management. In your packets, you'll find guided note-taking sheets as well as a slide to help you guys take notes and retain the knowledge. So, the first generation is simple to-do list. These are equivalent to what our parents gave us as teenagers to get chores done on Saturday. They're simple reminders without prioritization. A to Z, cross things off as you get them done. So, in and of themselves, not very effective as an overall personal management system, but certainly I use them as a critical tool. I mean, if any one of you had the means of writing down pen and paper the things that we just exchanged, you'd at least have been able to recollect them. So, the second generation it involves planners, and so it actually allows for some prioritization and schedules. And the planners I'm talking about is the the planners we have in high school inside our Trapper Keepers. Morgan, do people still use Trapper Keepers in high school these days? You're not too far removed.
I'm middle school at least.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not too far removed from how it works. So it does allow for some prioritization, and it's acceptable for individual performers. And what I mean by that is you're able to manage your workload in that kind of a system. And so, simple excerpt. I mean, how many people use some sort of planner or calendar to help manage their time? This excerpt from my calendar on March 9th, where I need to be at what time and what I'm doing. So again, great for my workload and wanting to get done, but still on the lower end of the scale as far as overall tools or generations. The third generation is where we kind of cross from individual performers to sort of the advanced level. And not a whole lot of people get to this place, to be honest. It's very effective. It prioritizes tasks based on goals and values, which means that you have to have individual goals and values. And it requires recurring reviews, and that's the key. Be it daily reviews, weekly reviews, monthly, whatever occurrence is necessary for you, it helps you to look at your priorities and schedule them accordingly. So we'll get into a weekly review, which is one of the most critical parts of the getting things done method. But this is an output of mine. I reviewed, I identified 11 priorities for the week of March 6th, and as long as the days I planned on executing those priorities, I had an improvement focus that I wanted to get better at myself, as well as some other goals, maybe not related to work, and then broke down goals for that individual, that specific day. So, the fourth generation prioritizes relationships and achievement, and it requires a bigger picture understanding. And so this is where you go again from truly as a maybe contributing team member to a team leader or manager. And you realize that the only way to get things done is through other people, and so you need to involve them in your goals, your vision, your values and stuff. And so for me, what this means is a personal mission statement on what means where I want to direct my life, the various roles I play in my life, and the values that I want to exude in those roles. And so with that higher level understanding, I'm able to conduct quarterly reviews to make sure that my priorities are in line and that I'm going in the right direction. And then weekly reviews to define the priorities on a weekly basis and make sure I'm not forgetting myself as a friend, a family member, a son or a husband. I'm not focused too much just on a professional. So now that we kind of understand what the different levels are, let's look at what kind of makes that third and fourth generation system. And that's where we get into David Allen's 5 stages of mastering workflow, which again comes from the model of getting things done. And the 5 stages are collect, process, organize, review, and do. And this is a process flow diagram of what it looks like. We'll go through each individual item as it goes, but this is the whole thing put together. So for collection, you're collecting all the open loops. Anything that is actionable in your life that is not done, you're writing it down, putting it somewhere, collecting it, getting it out of your head onto a piece of paper at a bare minimum to start with. And then you have buckets that are collection buckets to collect open loops. Your email inbox is an open loop bucket. You have things that come into your bucket and need processed. Your physical inbox, be it a tray or whatever you have by your desk, is a physical collection bucket. Your Outlook calendar, your Outlook tasks, whatever you use, you've got a number of buckets. And you want to limit those buckets because the goal is to empty them on a recurring basis, to be able to trust that when I get something out of my head and put it in my Outlook task log, I'm going to see it again. So I can truly let it go out of my mind and know that it will come up to me again through my task. And so that's the collection process. And the first time you do this, it may be a whole day, multi-day event, but once you have a system going forward and you have the wheels greased, so to speak, it doesn't require that sort of level of collection. Once you collect the loops, you process them. You define what it is. If it's not actionable, you have the option of eliminating it, incubating it, which means you might set it aside for later use in a particular folder, or storing it for reference. This is valuable reference material, but not something I need right now. If it is actionable, you define the next action. What do I need to do next? What do I want this to look like when it's done, and what do I need to do next to get it there? If it takes less than 2 minutes to do it, and the thought process there is if you're going to be moving in and out, I'm gonna write down what I need to do next, and I'm gonna store it in my system, and then when it comes up in my system, I'm gonna take it back. I've already used a minute of time. If it takes less than 2 minutes, get it done, get it out of the way. So do it, delegate it, defer it. Those are your three options when you process it. And when you process tools, you move them into your organizational system, which again is kind of the various folders and inboxes you have placed. And so if it's not actionable, those systems are the trash, an incubation folder, or a reference file. If it is actionable and it's a project, which means there's more than one step, it's going to take quite a bit of work, you have a project plan, you put your project folder. And if it's actionable and you define the next action, you can put it on your calendar, on your next actions template, or list, again, your to-do list, or on a waiting for list file that requires action from someone else first. And so those are the ones that suggest, I have a number of various ones that I use, and everyone has their own personal ones, but that's just a nice little introduction on what they recommend. And then you get to the review. And the review process, again, is something where now I have processed all of my information, all my open loops. I have them in my organizational system. As I get new open loops, new assignments, new tasks throughout the day, I put them into the proper place in the system, the proper organizational bucket, and I review those on at least a weekly basis, or at most a weekly basis, so I can define my priorities for the next week. And then I get through a day. I get through Monday, March 6th. I check where I got my goals. Do I need to check my Tuesday goals? Do I need to readjust them based on what I got done today and what's come up today? And I negotiate my time with myself. And then you execute. And there's essentially, the model gives us three options for the work that we're doing on a daily basis. You're either doing predefined work, you're executing your priorities that you define through your weekly review. In my weekly review, I noticed I have to estimate a new facility cost. I get out a part of 2 hours on Tuesday to do that, and so I'm doing that work. Or I'm doing work that shows up, which means our priorities are defining themselves. I call this fighting fires. And that's when I don't set priorities, I don't schedule my time, and I'm essentially reacting to the world that demands on my time. And if you're not setting and enacting your priorities, your priorities are being set and enacted on you. And so it's kind of important, that makes it critical. And then the third option is actually defining work, doing your reviews, identifying and scheduling your priorities. And again, having that system, having it in place, fires do happen. I mean, we're not going to avoid option 2 here. But I know that on Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock, I'm supposed to be working on again, my estimate. But if I had something come up, I can renegotiate my time, decide if it's more important than that, reschedule that for when else it fits, and see what impact it has on my overall prioritization. First is just putting it aside and start working on what I'm working on, and now that becomes an open loop again that I got to fit somewhere into an already defined schedule. So the weekly review that I've been talking about, again, is one of the most critical parts of the getting things done module. For me, it's a 2-hour exercise on a Friday afternoon or a Sunday evening. You repeat the 5 stages of the master workflow, but you do it in an abbreviated method. Again, once you have done the initial collection, you're simply emptying your buckets, looking at them, and how am I prioritizing my time for the next week. I actually get them on my calendar in Outlook again, which lets me know I'm estimating that this class is going to take 2 hours. I got it blocked off Monday for 2 hours, and then if that something else have another demand on my time in that 2 hours, I've got to renegotiate where it's going to go. I also update my next action list, which again is just a simple to-do list, and that's I got out of a meeting an hour early. I don't have anything scheduled right now, so I'm not going to kick my feet up and relax. I'm going to go to my next action list and see, what do I have available to do at my computer when I have free time. I leave time for fires. I don't book all of my 10 hours a day every day straight through. I have some blanks so people can come in and talk to me, and so I can address, again, put out fires when they come. This is maybe the most critical step to getting things done is the weekly review. And so here are the references for that, for what we have done there. And so far in the first module, in the first part of this module, we have really focused on the theory of getting things done and effective time management, personal management systems. In the next exercise in this module and in all subsequent modules, we'll be working on the practical application. So you can take what we've learned and apply it in your work and in your life immediately when you go. And so we have a little bit of time to do an even more abbreviated version of exercise 2. And so everyone, if you could just take pen and paper, write down 3 projects or tasks or open items that you have in your life that have seemed too daunting, too big to get started, stuff that have fallen victim to procrastination. Examples might include at work developing a new standard or procedure to close a gap, or evaluating current staffing levels, or at home remodeling your kitchen. Once you have those 3 projects that have, again, been too big or too daunting for you to really take on, and you've been procrastinating, write down what the next action might be. And again, it's the very next action. It should be extremely small, extremely actionable. It might be read the existing procedure and determine where the gap is, or scheduling time to meet with your boss to discuss your current staffing levels, or Google kitchen remodelers. And the concept here goes back to the old adage, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? But if you don't define that by what it looks like, you're not going to get it done, and the task is going to look too daunting. The mountain's too big to climb if you look at the peak, but if you look at the next step in front of you, you're going to get there eventually. And so when it comes to project work, bigger tasks, the key is to identify what you want the outcome to be. What remodeling the kitchen, what's a successful remodel going to look like? I'm going to increase my cabinet space and give it a more open floor plan. So now I kind of know what the end game is. What's my very next action to get there? And from that, you can go on and actually develop what I'll call a project plan, to where, okay, after I Google remodelers, I'm going to contact 3 and have them come look and give me a bid. And then I'm going to evaluate the budget, and you can put a step-by-step plan that, again, turns that huge project into multiple actionable steps. And it's a preliminary plan, right? So you Google your remodelers, you look them up, and you turn out that you can't maybe afford what you want to. Then you have a chance to revise and redefine your next action there. So Rachel, what was one of the projects you wrote down?
Doing research.
Doing research? Mm-hmm. And I guess what was keeping you, from getting that done?
I don't know, occupation, prioritizing other tasks before.
And so what next action did you define?
I said organize and make a plan to do a little bit at a time.
And that's kind of key. Organize, make a plan, but make it something that you can do and when you can do it. So again, I have this critical research that I need to do, and I've just been putting it off because I really haven't defined what it looks like and what it's going to be. But I know when I research it, it's going to be researching my master's thesis or whatever it is. And so I'm going to, my simple next action to get me moving is to schedule 30 minutes in my calendar sometime within the next 3 days to sit down and maybe develop my action plan. You know, how simple a step is that, but it gets you going in the right direction. Jordan, what'd you have?
I need to schedule a meeting with this very needy bride.
So, okay, so that might not be too big of a task. It might just be something that you've been avoiding for the fact that she's needy.
Yes.
So obviously the next action there is
Scheduling
the time.
Like an entire day, not just time.
Right. So you can see where this is going, what it looks like, and how it could fit into your weekly review. So again, if during my week at work, I've determined from a lesson learned on the project, we had something fail, and I determined I need to revise that procedure to make sure it's not going to happen anymore. So I add that to my project list in my Outlook task folder. And then on Friday, I'm reviewing my Outlook task, reviewing my project list, and I've got, rewrite or develop a standard for this thing. I'm not going to tackle that right there. I'm not going to sit down in my 2 hours. It's not a 2-minute task. I'm not going to simply put that on my calendar to just block out an hour and rewrite the standard. I'm going to develop a project plan that says I need to research the existing standard, I need to meet with the subject matter experts, and then I need to draft the revised standard and route it for approval. So for now, I'm going to schedule 30 minutes on Monday to review the existing standard and then go from there. Maybe I feel confident enough that I get those first 2 steps. On Monday, I'll review the existing standard. On Tuesday, I'll meet with subject matter experts, that sort of thing. So. Now that we've understood the key concepts to get things done, in the next module, we'll actually look at some tools to mechanize our personal management systems. And the next first one will be your email. So that's the end of that abbreviated module. If you don't mind turning to the last page in your packet and showing up the evaluation, I certainly appreciate it.
Morgan is here.
Oh,
Sit, sorry. She comes
okay,
in.
go to that side.
Come on, Morgan.
We got 3 in the
Morgan
back.
can sit back there.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, and then just find your name tag and display it.
You've already started to impress your progress.
Gee.
That's it. That's it.
Okay.
What are your commissioners? What is my name?
Great. Well, let me tell you did these bug you? Is that okay? All right. Let me tell you who you guys are. So you're all management executives with a company called Lusso Travel, which is Italian for luxury. And so you've flown in from all over the country, and we're doing this management seminar, and we're doing it on strengths and your talents. And the reason we're doing that is because the travel company has had a lot of turnover, and they're not doing a really good job with hiring, and they don't have some real insight as to their employees' talents. So we're here to learn about our talents, and then you as managers will take it back to your team. So we are on module number 2, so if you want to flip to the second page, you'll see the agenda. And we just completed an exercise called Energize or Drain. And so we will move into the lecturette, and then we will do an activity at the end of it. So all right, so we're going to get started, and we're going to have some fun today, because normally as managers you spend all your time worrying about somebody else, but today you just get to think about yourself. So that will be fun. So we just did an exercise called Energized or Drained, and the reason that we did that is because it gives us clues to talent. So we are going to spend the remaining 30 minutes that we have together then to continue talking about talent and strengths. So we're going to talk about 3 things today then. We're going to talk about what is a talent. We are going to talk about the 5 clues to talent and how you can pick those up for yourself. And then we are going to talk about what is a strength. So talents then, and I should say that in your packets that we just passed out then are copies also of slides, and so you can kind of jot down notes as we go along if you would like. So to get started then, talents are defined by Gallup, as naturally recurring patterns of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied. So we'll learn a little bit later today as we go along that your talents can be spread across many areas, or they can kind of be condensed into just a few. But no matter where they fall, you'll find that you and your talents are incredibly unique. So as you look around, and part of the reason that we have these name tags here is so that you can start to focus not only on your own talents and hence strengths, but also to learn what everybody else's are. And so the words are kind of small in some of those little boxes on your name tags, but try to look around and see if you can find someone that has some of the same talents as you do. So we will, as we go around and you see some of those talents, know that there is a 1 in 250,000 chance that someone